As we said, North Korea conducted a successful missile test last night. We're going to talk about that now and a lot more with UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Madam Ambassador, thank you for coming in this morning. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you very much.
Serious stuff to begin with. The 7th missile test this year from the North Koreans. It appears to have been a success, and your administration has said that this era of strategic patience is over. So is there anything you can do right now to stop these tests?
Well, I think you first have to get into Kim Jong-un's head, which is he's in a state of paranoia. He's incredibly concerned about anything and everything around him. I think this was a message to South Korea after the election. And so what we're going to do is continue to tighten the screws. He feels it. He absolutely feels it. And we're going to continue, whether it's sanctions, whether it's press statements, anything that we have to do, we're going to do.
Doesn't appear to be affecting his actions.
Well, I can tell you we're working better with China than we ever have. We are determined to take care of South Korea, which is why we have our mission there, working on that as well. And then we're going to continue to take care of Japan. What we do know is the international community is concerned. It's not just us against them anymore. Now you're going to see the entire international community isolate North Korea and let them know this is not acceptable.
Just before the missile test, a senior official in the North Korean Foreign Ministry said that they're prepared for direct talks with the Trump administration if the conditions are right. And President Trump has said he'd be honored to meet Kim Jong-un under the right circumstances. What are those circumstances?
It's not this. Having a missile test is not the way to sit down with the president, because he's absolutely not going to do it. And I can tell you, he can sit there and say all the conditions he wants. Until he meets our conditions, we're not sitting down with him.
White House statement also said the president can't imagine that Russia is pleased with this test. Any indication yet from your Russian counterparts that they're prepared to take tougher action now?
They're concerned. I mean, this is getting kind of close to home for them, and so they're concerned. And I think certainly what we're going to start doing is rallying the troops again and say, okay, what do we need to do next? And listen, I mean, there's a lot of sanctions left that we can start to do, whether it's with oil, whether it's with energy, whether it's with their maritime ships, exports. We can do a lot of different things that we haven't done yet, so our options are there. But what we have to do is send a strong, unified message that this is unacceptable, and I think you'll see the international community do that.
Speaking of the Russians, the day after the president's meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov, he put out this tweet. He said Russia must be laughing up their sleeves watching as the U.S. tears itself apart over a democratic excuse for losing the elections. Is that what you think the Russians are doing, laughing up their sleeves?
I think the Russians are trying to figure out what to do. I don't think they know what to do with our president. I don't think they know what to do with the situation. They've been isolated when it comes to Syria, and they're trying to figure out what their place in the world is going to be, and we've shaken that. But I think that now we have to move forward and figure out what can we work with them on, and what are we absolutely not going to work with them on.
You've said in the past, you actually said it to Martha Raddatz on this program, the president hasn't told you to stop beating up on Russia. It doesn't appear that that's what the president was doing in his meeting with the foreign minister.
Look, his job is to sit there and try and find common ground. That's what his job is. And I can tell you there's no one better to sit down with a foreign leader than the president, because whenever he gets in front of them, things change, things move. It's very positive, and he makes a difference in it. And I think what we're seeing is that they're testing each other. Russia's testing us, we're testing them. It's part of just, the new president coming in and President Putin having to figure out his place.
The foreign minister appeared so full of himself at that meeting. Are you worried at all about the messages sent by having that meeting right on the heels of the firing of James Comey?
No, I mean, I think that, Russia is full of themselves. They've always been full of themselves, but it's more of a facade that they try and show as opposed to anything else. What we are is serious, and you see us in actions. It's not in personas. It's in actions, and it's what we do, and that's why Russia was left on an island when it came to Syria. Everyone else isolated them with their connection with Assad and Iran, and I think you'll continue to see us do that in other directions. However, it's very important we work with Russia on our fight against ISIS.
Many foreign policy experts have expressed concern, including the former CIA director, Michael Hayden. Here's what he said this week.
In 110 days, the president has fired a national security advisor, an acting attorney general, and the director of the FBI. This kind of behavior is not normally associated with a mature Western democracy. It's associated with autocratic populist states.
Also, Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State, said she's worried that Comey's firing and the way the White House dealt with it is starting to erode people's confidence in our institution. And here's what one of your colleagues, the U.S. Ambassador to Qatar, tweeted this week. Increasingly difficult to wake up overseas to news from home, knowing I will spend today explaining our democracy and institutions. Has this made your job more difficult?
Actually, no one has talked to me about this.
No one?
And I love the fact that I'm in New York because I'm away from all of that. It's very unusual for any of my counterparts here in New York to talk about domestic issues. What I can tell you, and I enjoy not having to be close to those things in D.C., but what I can tell you is the president is the CEO of the country. He can hire and fire whoever he wants. That's his right. Whether you agree with it or not, it's the truth. And what he's trying to do is find his own team, figure out how he's going to do it. Were there better ways he could have done that? That's for everybody else to decide. But we have to remember, he can hire and fire anybody else that he wants to.
That is indisputably true, but I guess the question is the timing, the reasons the president gave, and also the whole question of credibility, whether you can take the president at his word.
Well, I think what you can see is this a president of action. I mean, he is not one that's going to sit there and talk for too long. If he thinks something's wrong, he's going to deal with it. And I think that, you know, the reason people are uncomfortable is because he acts. He doesn't talk with a bunch of people about it before. He just acts. And so, you know, there's never a good time to fire someone. That's not something that anybody that's never going to play out well. But at the end of the day, the president has to surround himself with a team that he can trust. He's got to surround himself with a team that he thinks is going to represent and secure the United States properly. I think that's what he's trying to do.
But are the Russians succeeding at their goal, the one expressed by our intelligence community, their goal to disrupt our democracy, raise doubts about our democracy?
I think that's what they're doing around the world. I think they're trying to do that. I think they're trying to cause everything to be in question. We see them playing in a lot of different elections and trying to do that because that's all they've got. At the end of the day, that's a temporary fix for a bigger problem. And so what they'll find out is, yeah, they can cause some disruptions here or there, but at the end of the day, it's not going to have any sort of permanent lasting.
There are all these questions about the White House taping system and this question of whether or not the president asked James Comey to pledge loyalty. Did he ask you to pledge loyalty to him personally?
No, but I think when you take the job, you automatically assume that you work for the president and you are part of the team. And loyalty is a big thing. It's you know, as a former governor, I can tell you loyalty and trust is everything when you're a CEO. And so I can totally understand why he's looking for loyalty and trust, because
but loyalty to the Constitution first, correct?
Of course. I mean, loyalty, you know, look, first we serve the people. I've always looked at that. You serve the people first. But having said that, you never forget who's in charge. You never forget who the CEO of a country is when you decide to serve. And so everyone works at the pleasure of the president. And that's what, you know, we have to remember is if he doesn't feel comfortable, he can do something about it.
Did you ever assume that you were being taped in the White House?
I did not. But, you know, I assume I'm being taped everywhere, so I never worry about
Only
that.
that is good. Final question on the president's trip coming up.
Yes.
First stop is Saudi Arabia. And the president says he wants to go there first for a reason. He wants to help the fight against ISIS and other extremists. And during the campaign, President Trump said that he might halt purchasing oil from Saudi Arabia unless they commit ground troops or money to the fight against ISIS. Is that idea still on the table?
I think what you are seeing is he is making an amazing first trip. He's going to Saudi Arabia, he's going to Israel, and he's going to Rome. Think about that. 3 of the strongest religions. He's going to go together, talk to all of them, and his message is going to be about unity. He's going to show what American leadership looks like because those are areas of the world that have questioned it. I think he's going to go and talk to them about where we can work together. And right now, the president understands we have to get unity across the world. We really have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to unify everyone against ISIS. And we've already started to be very strong in our attacks against them, you know, around the world. And I think that this is his way of solidifying our relationships with Saudi Arabia, with Israel, and then also with the Pope.
But no threats to cut off oil purchases.
I think, you know, anything is on the table. You know, I would never say that there's anything off the table, but that's not the intention of why he's going.
Ambassador Haley, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Up next,